today. You know, Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory? Well, we know exactly where the sting is. It's in our hearts. It's in our soul. It's in the air. A great many of us were privileged to know Alex Renteria, who worked at the diner, as Joseph just mentioned. A good soul and a brave man. Some of the old-timers know David Cavazos Tito, who worked for us 20 years ago. In fact, he even lived in the back house that we had at 1848 East First Street, along with 3 other homes. And what a good heart that guy had. So we know exactly where the sting is. It's in our hearts, it's in our souls, it's in the air. Last week, I went to San Jose to give some talks. I was privileged to be joined by Louis and Fabian. And we gave a talk at Bellarmine College Prep in the morning, and then we had some time to kill between our gigs. I don't know what to see in San Jose exactly, but we drove through Santa Clara University, and then I drove to Santa Clara Cemetery. And we got out, and I told Fabian and Louis, this place right here is where all the Jesuits in the California province are buried. And I stood in the spot where the last Jesuit who had been buried. As you know, Mark and I are Jesuits, as is the Pope. Name drop. So I told them that 41 years ago when I entered the Jesuits, my director of novices, Leo Rock, a great man, used to say, always make sure if you're in town in San Jose, go to the cemetery and go stand at the spot where the last Jesuit died and was buried. Stand there and look down and say to yourself, if I die today, I will be buried right next to this guy. And I've done it many, many times in 41 years because it's a kind of an exercise in mortality that none of us get out of this alive. That death happens, and that there was something about focusing the mind in knowing that if I died today, I'd be buried right here. Something about it. So I was telling it to Louis and Fabian. And we had a long conversation there as they smoked frajos over the graves of these old dead Jesuits. And we got sort of emotional, you know, and both Fabian and Louis said when they were back in the lifestyle, gangbanging and drug addiction, they weren't afraid to die. But that only seemed like it was fearlessness. It was really despair. And I reminded that next week I will bury my 186th person killed in our streets for exactly no reason whatsoever. And in my early years of burying homies, I used to, after the funeral, I'd walk out to the guy in the church parking lot, and I'd go to the guy who was by himself. And I think maybe he's vulnerable enough to hear something today. And I'd put my arm around him, and I always said the same thing. Look, I don't ever want to bury you at 16 years old, or whatever his age was. And I remember in my early days, I expected only one response. Yeah, boy, that means 2 of us. I don't want to die. Never gotten that response, not ever, not once. They always say the same thing. You gotta die sometime. And then they'd say, I don't really care whether I live or die. Not being afraid of death feels like it's fearlessness, and it's really despair. So back to Louis and Fabian at the cemetery, they said, since we've been in recovery and since we've experienced the transformation here at Humboldt Industries, we care about our lives for the first time. And a lot of us have heard people say this. For the first time, I care whether I live or die. I care for my kids. I care about showing up in the morning and being in a place like this that accepts and loves me. I care about my life now. And that's more powerful than death. So certainly there's sting, but there is no victory. Death has no power over us because we care. for the people we love, and we care for this place. And what is death's sting and victory compared to that? Amen. Carla, lead us in prayer.